Cork oak woodlands, semi-deciduous oak woodlands, and spectacular canutos in deep gorges are renowned forest formation in the Aljibe Mountains within the Strait of Gibraltar region. Most of these forests, particularly the best preserved ones, are under the umbrella of Los Alcornocales Natural Park and were listed in 2001 as top ranked of Spain forests. However, in this region there is another woody vegetation type which is locally abundant but treeless, and perhaps for this latter reason frequently ignored and excluded from information brochures and naturalist guides of the region, the Mediterranean heathland or Herriza. Herriza is a local term to name these dense heathlands on rocky sandy soils which are very acidic and nutrient poor, and are soils derived from oligomyosenic sandstone or aljibe sandstone. They are found generally on mountain summits and ridges. They also associated to a mild Mediterranean climate owing to the oceanic influence and the prevalent southeast winds, known as Levante, very frequent in summer, which cause mountain low clouds. Sandstone soils rare in the Mediterranean basin appear in mountain areas at both sides of the Strait of Gibraltar. They contrast with surrounding marl, limestone and clay soils, more fertile and less acidic. They thus constitute truly eruphic islands of acid, nutrient-poor soils. Despite the floristic connections between the Herriza and the European Atlantic heathlands, its enormous biodiversity and singularity gives it a high value as a unique vegetation type. It is composed of shrubs and subshrubs adapted to the limiting eruphic conditions, many of them narrow endemics. The Herriza is dominated by pyrophyte species whose seeds remain dormant in the soil during years and only germinate after fire. So, the absence of fire hampers the occurrence of generation turnover in this species, causing senescence and ultimately the collapse of the Herriza. In other words, the Herriza not only is resistant to fire but is vulnerable to the lack of fire. Although seemingly paradoxical, fire suppression is a threat for the persistence of this habitat. This does not mean that fire must be brought in as a management tool in the Herriza. This is no longer feasible as there are economic interests in the region such as cork harvesting that discourage it, apart from the inherent risk for people. However, knowledge of the ecological relationship between Herriza and fire should be incorporated in post-fire management strategies of burned Herrizas after fortuitous fires. A burned Herriza does not need active restoration programs, just avoiding another fire to occur in at least 10 years. Also, excluding or limiting herbivory by large browsers, both game and free-range livestock, since a heavy herbivory may jeopardize post-fire regeneration of the Herriza. The plant biodiversity and uniqueness of the Herriza should enhance its enormous ecological value and need for conservation. By contrast, the Herriza has traditionally been ignored or underappreciated, considered as a mere forest successional stage of low ecological and landscape interest. That has determined that, until recently, the Herriza has been considered as areas needed to be reforested. Past reforestation policies have afforested the Herriza with pines, mostly Pinus pinaster. Nowadays, most of these pine plantations are abandoned because of its poor economic returns. However, the damage that these abandoned pine plantations cause to the Herriza are drastic. The Herriza collapses under the dense tree crown shade and the dense needle-littered layer. The Herriza, or Mediterranean heathland, whose best preserved examples are within the boundaries of Los Alcornocales Natural Park, by no means is a degraded habitat with low conservation value. Plant biodiversity and singularity levels of the Herriza, together with its landscape beauty, make of it a unique habitat not only in the Iberian Peninsula, but also in Europe and the whole Mediterranean basin. The Herriza deserves being singled out together with Corco woodlands, semi-deciduous oak forests and canutos in local, regional and European funding programs for conservation of one of the outstanding biodiversity hotspots, the Strait of Gibraltar region.